Hey guys, in this video we'll talk about one of the things I like the most when I'm editing videos, and that's sound design. An absolutely essential thing to make your videos come alive. I'll show you how and where I get all of my sounds, my thoughts and my choices on how I put them together and mix them to match my videos and clips and make them more immersive. These principles can be applied to all kinds of films, but I'll focus on nature and wildlife since it's what I do the most. So at the end of this video, I'm pretty sure you're ready and set to create some nice soundscapes for your own video projects. Let's jump right in. Sound helps elevate the impact of each clip and the overall feel of a film, having the viewer getting way more immersed than if you're just adding some music. From the atmospheric sound of the wind roaming in the mountains, insects in the grasses on a hot summer day, to an owl's call within the woods. Different sounds from the animals, footsteps and other detailed Foley sounds, to the more abstract sound empathizing for video effects like transitions, camera movements, overlays and so on. Sound works as a glue for the flow of the film, giving every clip its own rightfully place in the timeline, and helps the viewer to unconsciously focus on those details that are important in each clip, enhancing the overall viewer experience. When we film animals with our big zoom lenses, they're often limited to no audio on these clips, besides maybe ourselves breathing into the camera, since the scene happens way out. Many wildlife shots are recorded in slow motion as well, also making the sound a bit of a challenge. So therefore we have to add the sound ourselves in post-production. So how do we do that? Sometimes I use a shotgun mic on top of the camera to record the sound in the direction towards what I'm shooting. But I also like to use a zoom recorder once in a while. This device. To get some great stereo sounds to add to my sound library. That can be rustling leaves, atmospheres of the forest, footsteps and so on. Something I record out in the field. Other times I download sounds from services like Epidemic Sound and Artlist, which have a huge library of sounds to choose from, and you're able to search whatever you need. YouTube also has its own library of music and sound effects that you can use for free. There are tons of different services out there, and these are just what I use. It's not always easy to find the exact sound you need, so sometimes it's actually easier just to record it at home, creating those sounds yourself. The sky is the limit, and you'll be surprised on how different things can create different sounds. Imagine what you need and be creative on what elements can make that sound. Try tweaking them, reverse them and so on, and see what you get out of it. And remember always to save them for later use, building your own sound library. You'll never know what you'll end up needing in later projects. And if you're searching for a specific sound of bird, there is a site called Canto, I'll write it down here, where people all around the world upload and share field recording of wildlife, and that's very useful. There are often three overall main categories of sound: voice and dialogue, music, and of course sound effects. The voice and dialogue more or less explains itself. It's like me talking here. Same goes with the music, but often music is used together with the sound effects to create that perfect soundscape for a video. It can be anything from a song, a beat, down to an ambient drone or atmospheric sound. What I'll be focusing on in this video is mainly the sound effects itself, which I like to divide further into subcategories like atmospheric sounds, the sounds that takes place all around me. The Foley sounds, which are those detailed sound on specific things. And the sound effects, like all the extra stuff to enhance something special. And to organize my sound library, I use a program called Samplism. that lets me import, categorize, and search through all of my sounds. And I could just drag and drop into my editing software when I find the sound I need. To start designing some soundscapes, I've chosen some different scenes from my earlier recordings, and I'll show you how I create soundscapes to match them. In this scene, a buzzard is eating of a hare, grabbing the hare's fur and tearing the meat apart. It also swallows bites of meat. We're pretty close, so we need to empathize for those details to put extra focus on them, but also look at the atmosphere as we can see the wind is blowing in the fur and the feathers. I will first add a layer of atmospheric wind to the scene. And when we see the clip of the wind and the feathers, I'll turn up the sound to put extra focus on that. Then let's dive into the sounds of eating and add that to the clip. I've got a few different eating sounds to choose from. It's not from a buzzard, but some other animals, and I think they're quite suitable. And I will match those to the scene every time the buzzard dives into the hare to eat. Just cut and fit them to whatever happens in the clips. When the meat is torn apart, I'll also add some sound to match that and make it even more dramatic. This whole scene is filmed in slow motion, so it's really easy to see when the buzzard is blinking. It has this layer that covers the eyes, and to put focus on that, I'll reverse a few of the eating sounds and use that as a sound to match the blinking. It works quite well, I think. When the buzzard grabs the fur, there's really no sound to it. But to enhance that, I got some different sounds of clothing actually, which I think fits quite well to this. So I'll add those to match as well. Same goes with the wings flapping when the buzzard has to balance itself. We're quite close, so though it doesn't have a sound to it as well, I'll add some whooshes or filter noises to drive attention to this movement. Again, just match the sound of every time the wing spreads out, making for a pretty cool effect. In the end, the buzzard flies away, so a longer whoosh here will fit perfectly to end the scene. I also have to match that to when it flaps the wings, maybe together with a call of a buzzard. So let's just add that. And to wrap it up, I'll add some dramatic music to the scene, blending it all together, making it even more immersive and cinematic. And sometimes I do this before I edit, and sometimes I do it after. It just depends on the editing flow. So this is what it sounds like. Let's move on to the bear. I was in Finland filming the amazing brown bear as they're just walking from hibernation. There was a deep layer of new fallen snow as the bear emerged from the forest, walking right towards me. It's shot in slow motion, with a lot of focus on the snow swirling around the bear as it walked through it. It also sniffs around looking for food, sticking its whole head into the snow, and I'll need to find a solution to match that. First, let's start with an atmospheric sound again. We are in the wild forest of taiga. There's no harsh wind or anything to this scene. So I'll just use a subtle wind in the trees just as a background sound. In this scene, I'll focus on the steps adding the snow cracking beneath its huge paws, and some sounds as the paws swipe through the snow. I'll have to time that to every footstep / paw step, one step at a time, and make it as precise and realistic as possible, making sure to mix a few different sounds of the snow, since snow will sound different in each step. Some clips of the bear is quite close, so I'll add some sound of the bear breathing and growling a bit. We go from 100% speed to 25% speed in the beginning. So to empathize for this, I'll add a slow motion whoosh just as we slow things down. When the bear sticks its head into the snow in this clip, smelling and blowing the snow up, sounds to empathize for that would be quite suitable as well. I'll try to match that. And when it raises its head, I'll use a filter noise to put focus on that. As we zoom out to see the bear in the scene, I'll also add the sound of ravens calling in the forest. I think that's quite suitable, and we heard them so many times when we are out there. So again, I'll add some background music to the scene, not something that takes over everything, but just a subtle sound that makes the scene a bit more dramatic. I'll put it in just when we slow things down in the beginning, getting close to the bear. And when it raises its head, I'll stop the music so we're only hearing the wind and sound of the forest as the bear walks out of the scene. And since the bear walks out to the right in the frame, we could do some stereo tweaking, making sure the sound is playing only in the speaker to the right. So let's see the scene now with all the sounds attached. Let's move on to the white-throated dipper. It's not as dramatic as a bear, obviously, but there are some really interesting sounds to create, especially with the waters in these clips. I've got some clips of the dipper diving in and coming back out of the waters with some caddisfly larvae it caught. It then does a good job to get them out of their hives, smashing them down several times and eat them in the end. Let's create a suitable soundscape for that. Once again, I'll pay attention to the atmosphere. We are in the forest and we're down at a small pond, so we definitely need some sounds of that. It could be the sound of rippling waters. Not too much, since we'll add some water sounds later on, but just a subtle sound for the background. Then we'll have to pay attention to what the water does as the dipper dives in and comes back up. Water sounds so differently depending on its movement, so we'll have to find different water sounds to emphasize for that, and then precision cut and fit those sounds to match the water. When it dives in, it is a completely different sound than when it comes back up. And even the ripples in the water after it submerges has its own sound, the small drops, the splashing and so on. So it can be pretty tricky to match all these sounds, but it is a lot of fun. And when it fits, is just really satisfying. It's also flapping its wings in the water, making it splash around. So to focus on the wings, I actually got some sounds of a flag in the wind that fits quite well to this, I think. And the same sound can be used when the dipper flies around. When it takes flight, I'll also add the sound of a dipper's call, just to vocalize it a bit. On top of this, I will make a few recordings myself to get the sound of a larva getting squeezed in the beak and eaten. And I will imagine it will sound a little bit like this. So let's add that as well. In the end, let's put on some music to match the scene. Let's see how this whole scene turns out with all the sounds attached. Let's move on to the next scene and another bird catching its prey in waters, the massive white-tailed eagle. I got a shot far out on a lake on 1200mm of the eagle striking down, catching a big fish and then flies away with it. Once again, the atmosphere tells us that we need the sound of waters in the lake and also some winds, since the whole scene takes place in the air. As the eagle strikes down, I've speed ran the clip going from 100% to 25% speed, and I want to enhance this effect further with a mix of whoosh sounds, slowing down the clip. The eagle flies really fast, so I'll also add a few more whooshes and time-lapse sounds to this movement, enhancing the feeling of the eagle flying fast through the air. Now, let's focus on the water impact. I can see that its claws is slightly touching the water just before it catches the fish. So just like with the white-throated dipper, I'll match that with a suitable sound swiping through the water and another splash as the actual catch takes place. After the fish is caught, there's a lot of water splashing around all over, and I'll make sure to emphasize for that as well. Since it's an eagle and its call is very distinct and recognizable, I like to add that in the beginning as it starts to fly down. I'll add a little bit of space to the sound, like it's calling across the whole lake, giving it a bit of an echo of some sort. I'll use my space designer for that. Same thing after it has catched the fish and flies away with it, like it's telling everyone who's in charge of this lake. There are also both seagulls and cormorants in the scene, so I'll make sure to add the sound of these birds as well. The white-tailed eagle has a wingspan of more than 2 meters. They are so big and I would really like to focus on it. So with a filler noise sound with 2 whooshes as the wings flaps down and goes back up, I'll fit those to the eagle flying, matching it all the way down every time the wings are flapping. It makes for a pretty cool effect, putting some focus to those big wings. It is a dramatic scene, so I'll add some dramatic music. I like the sound of drums, so just as we slow down the clips of the eagle catching its prey, the drums will come in. So let's watch it all again with all the sounds. That's about it. I could keep talking about this and show you different examples, but now you've seen some of the process I go through when I do my sound design for my videos. Let me know if you have any questions or something to add, and please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel to support me. It would mean everything. Thank you guys, and thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.